Sorry, I was sitting over there and watching you eat.
Yeah, hey.
Is that weird?
Just a little.
Yeah. Can I sit with you?
Yeah, just go for it.
Cool. Is this weird? Like, it's kind of weird that I just got in your car.
Yeah, it's a little a little strange.
Chris Willis, The Book of Disquiet, a beautiful movie. I mean, beautiful.
Thank you so much.
It's Oscar level as far as the
wow.
quality of the shots. And when you told us that, you know what, tell the audience about the DP situation. And the DP is director of photography. It's the guy behind the camera.
You know, well, first of all, thank you for having me. This is such a great festival. I wanted to make a film that spoke truth, and you know, I think there's a lot of truth in the Book of Disquiet, and I just had to make a film based on this book. And so it's my first film, and putting it together, I had a number of problems. One of which was my original DP dropped out the night before. Well, he didn't drop out. I actually had to fire him because he called me up. He just didn't have the camera, didn't really have his act together, and things weren't looking good. And I just had a moment to myself where, okay, do I want this? Do I want this film to happen? And the answer was yes. And well, the story goes, I put out an ad that night on Craigslist for a new DP, found a new DP. He saved my film, and it happened. So
well, it worked. I mean, flawlessly. You wouldn't know that all happened 4, 5, 8 hours before the shooting began. I don't know if you did the park scenes first or the restaurant scenes first. I didn't hear.
The park scenes were first. All the dialogue, all the talking at the park, that was first.
So you were able to convey within a few, actually probably about an hour or two, because you had to get a little bit of sleep, I would hope, that night, or probably didn't. But you had to convey. Was it your field of vision that you were conveying to the DP, or was that his? Because the shots are beautiful.
You know, it was kind of a symbiotic relationship with the DP. I told him what I was going for, the vibe and the energy, but I didn't really speak his language. I didn't know about cameras or lenses. I just spoke in terms of what I felt, and I just relayed that. You know, a good DP is going to hear that, and he's going to know how to translate that into technical terms. So he understood what I was saying, and I think that's important for a DP.
Well, it came across. What kind of camera did he use?
It was a Blackmagic Cinema 6K.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a really beautiful film.
Thank you.
I think you really portrayed in a short amount of time. The character development was amazing too in a short amount of time. It's a short. So it's tough to build the character's development in that arena and tell the story.
Right.
And have it stick. I think that your character development was good, and the story development, the script, it really resonates.
Right. You know, I had a professor once that said every frame should renew interest. You know, every shot should renew interest. And I think as long as the film is, you know, the story is progressing, I think we're going to stay engaged. And I think as long as you're speaking truth, I think people are going to stay engaged. So, you know, I just tried to keep it fresh until the end.
Any more films on the way, or any?
I do. I have a couple in the works. I'm going to try to use 16 millimeter. I've never tackled that before, so you know, we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I think it's important, especially in this era of digital saturation. One is about a liquor store robbery, and one is about a father-son story. So we'll see how it goes.
Well, film does have a certain vibrancy and grain to it that's really, you can't really match.
Right.
I'm sure if they wanted to put 20 or 30 million behind it, you could probably get close, but still film is film.
Right.
And it has a certain depth to it. of saturation, which
Right.
when you were talking about the liquor store robbery, I can see it giving it a little bit of a gritty edge or something like a raw edge.
Oh, absolutely. And I think when you're setting up film, I think you just have to, just the nature of film, you have to take your time, set up the shots, carefully plan the lighting. And I think maybe those details are overlooked when you're using digital, or you're just not really thinking on that level. So I think film forces you to just think a certain way. And it's not going to be easy, but we'll see what happens.
What do you do in your day-to-day life?
Oh wow. I'm starting to get into a routine. I just write at least an hour a day. Or at least if all I do is sit in front of the computer for an hour, thinking of ideas, then that's fine. But as long as I just get in the chair, have the laptop, just try to tell myself I'm going to write. So I think routine's important. And just have fun with the process. At the end of the day, it's about having fun.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it comes through in the creative art on the outside if you're having
Yeah.
fun while you're doing it. I think what I meant was, do you have a job of any kind, or
I've been going from job to job.
what is your genre of job that you do?
I started off wanting to be a producer.
Right.
That was my career for a few years. And so when you do that, you start off as an assistant. So I was an assistant to a producer, and then I realized, all the people having fun were the filmmakers. So I decided I'm going to become the artist. I'm going to become the writer, director. So I quit those assistant jobs, and now I'm kind of working just, everyday kind of job. So I park cars now.
You what?
I park cars.
Okay.
But
the reason I ask is a lot of filmmakers shy away from what they do on the outside.
Yeah.
Very few people are able to make a living for 20, 30, 40 years out of this industry.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a mistake of people hiding because it brings character to the essence in which you write and the stories that you tell.
Oh, absolutely.
Through whether you've been a waiter, a dishwasher,
Yeah.
You work. We've got 3 or 4 guys here that had worked construction in their life. That brings a different element to their films that resonates with different people. And I think that instead of hiding that, I think that filmmakers should embrace that and go, you know what? This is what I do to earn the money to continue to do what I want to do until I get there.
Yeah.
But I'm going to take the stories and the feelings that I've experienced inside what I do and translate that to film. And that is when you get great film.
Oh, absolutely.
So I was wondering when you did this, had you worked in a restaurant or something? Because the shots, and there's a feel to it as if you're there with this guy.
Yeah, I was going through a very similar situation as the main character in my film. I think real art is born out of the struggle.
Yes.
I was working in a warehouse during the pandemic. Things were not easy, and so I think out of that mindset, that's where my film was born. I didn't know it at the time, but that's where I started to conceive of the idea. During my lunch breaks, I would drive to a park and just stare out the window at the life I wanted to have, or just thinking of ways I can get out of this situation. And it's funny, as it turns out, it was writing the film that kind of lifted me up out of that situation.
Right.
So the film is a true representation of the struggle itself.
Well, and I think that it really comes through in your film. So yeah, I would say to you, don't ever hide whatever you've done.
Yeah.
It's much like if you've talked to someone who has been in a great war. If you talk to someone who was an officer that was in the United States the whole time during a war, a conflict somewhere else, they're not going to have the story that the boots on the ground had. They're going to have a much deeper understanding of what it was and feeling of the things they've seen, felt, heard firsthand. And the stories are going to, I would much rather listen to that boots on the ground story than the officer that was setting somewhere in the United States that didn't get to experience it, because it's going to be rich, vibrant, raw, and real.
Yeah.
And I think that I knew that there had to be some sort of background for what you've created, because it was so vividly raw and real and emotional. And you really, at the end, a lot of people can empathize with the story with the fella in the car.
Absolutely.
And the car. Don't let me forget to ask you about the car. I love the car with the screwdriver.
Yeah. It was the car came with the actor who was my coworker in the warehouse. It was his car, and he that was the way he turned on his car, is with the screwdriver. He would
That
just
is wonderful.
carry it around in his back pocket.
Not wonderful for him, but it's. I wanted to ask that. It's like, did you have to break the ignition to do it with the screwdriver?
He's good with cars. I don't know what he did.
Right. But that's the way it was.
That's just the way it was, and I said, you know what? Let's go with that. I love it, you know, and
It looks like you spent $30,000 or $40,000 to get this car, to create the car the way it looks,
Right.
and with the steering, everything. So brilliant that it was his car, so you were just able to use it.
we just used it. It was the perfect casting.
Right.
You know, especially when you look at the framing of the shot.
Yes.
You know, it's like you kind of want to create that image like it's a play, like the proscenium arch. You know, we're looking at the film, his life through that windshield.
And the depth of the hood on those old Lincolns, and I
Oh,
don't
yeah.
know if that came into play in your mind when you had that automobile, is the depth and his reservedness in his own self, of depth away from life, the outside world.
There was a discussion about the depth.
I thought it played well.
Yeah, I think so too. I think when it comes to the windshield shots, we really focused on having the greenery in the background. You know, like that's something far off in the distance that he wants to attain, but he's still closed off in his car and he can't get out. You know, and so I think ultimately that was the goal, is to kind of get him to live his life. It was a call to action to get out of the car and live his life.
Feature film, is that something that you would want to do if it presented itself, or is that not an interest?
I think, you know, I think so. I think really it's about the process. It's about just becoming obsessed with making films. You know, not getting too caught up with what's down the road. I just like the process of creating art. Having said that, yeah, I'd love to. You know, we'll see what happens. It's a lot of work.
Right.
But I think having made this film, I think I can say I want to make the next film, and then the next film after that. We'll see what happens.
You also mix techno.
Well, word gets out.
You were
yeah.
you were in a line, and there was someone else here that mixes techno. So I don't know if we're going to create this as a techno film fest soon. If it's going to meld into that would be great. By the way,
I'd love that. I'm a DJ.
Yeah.
I love techno. I go to techno events. I'm trying to produce a techno track, and who knows? Maybe I'll make a techno film in some way.
Well, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
That would. Thank you so much
Absolutely.
for making your film
Thank
and
you very
coming
much.
here and meeting you in person.
It's good to be
It's been
here.
an honor.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.